You picked up your phone 4 minutes ago. You meant to check one notification, yet you are still here. That is not a willpower problem. That is not a you problem. Something reached into your brain and pulled your attention out of your hands, and it did it on purpose. Your ability to focus did not weaken on its own. It was systematically extracted by people who understood your brain better than you do and built machines specifically to exploit it. This is the story of how that happened and what it's doing to you. Let's start with the question nobody asks. Why does it feel almost physically impossible to put your phone down? Because here's the wild part. It's not your imagination. There is a specific neurochemical mechanism designed, quite literally engineered, to make that feel true. In the 1950s, researcher B.F. Skinner ran an experiment on pigeons. He gave them a lever. Press it, get food. Simple enough. But then he changed one variable. Instead of giving food every time, he made it random. Sometimes the lever worked, sometimes it didn't. The pigeons didn't press the lever less. They pressed it obsessively, far more than when the reward was guaranteed. This is called a variable ratio reward schedule, and it is, without exaggeration, the single most addictive reinforcement pattern known to behavioral science. It's the exact mechanism behind slot machines, and it is the exact mechanism behind your phone. Every time you pull to refresh, you don't know what you're going to get. Maybe a like, maybe nothing. Maybe a message from someone you care about. Your brain doesn't release dopamine when you get the reward. It releases dopamine in anticipation of not knowing. That uncertainty is the addiction. This wasn't an accident. Former tech executives have publicly admitted that companies hired behavioral psychologists, specifically trained in operant conditioning, to design these systems. The pull to refresh gesture, the infinite scroll, the notification badge in red, all engineered with the explicit goal of maximizing time on screen. Tristan Harris, a former design ethicist at Google, has called it a race to the bottom of the brainstem. Whoever can hijack the most primitive parts of your neurology wins your attention, and winning your attention is the entire business model. Here's where it gets stranger. Your brain has a network called the dopamine reward prediction system. Neuroscientist Wolfram Schultz discovered that dopamine doesn't actually spike when you get a reward. It spikes when a reward is better than expected, or when you don't know if it's coming at all. This is called a reward prediction error, and it means your brain is wired to crave uncertainty more than it craves the reward itself. Social media platforms don't just understand this, they are built around it. The algorithm doesn't show you content in order. It shows you an unpredictable mix, calibrated to maximize the prediction error, calibrated to keep that dopamine system firing in anticipation. Scroll after scroll after scroll. You're not choosing to keep scrolling. Your dopamine system is being directly stimulated by a feedback loop specifically tuned to override your intention to stop. But wait, because it gets worse. Your attention isn't just being captured in the moment. It's being structurally rewired over time. Neuroscientist Gloria Mark has spent over a decade studying attention spans in the workplace. In 2004, the average amount of time someone could focus on a single screen before switching was 2.5 minutes. By 2012, it had dropped to about 75 seconds. Recent measurements put it under 50 seconds. This isn't a personal failing happening individually to millions of people by coincidence. It is a measurable population-level shift in human cognitive capacity, and it correlates almost perfectly with the rise of smartphone use. Here's the mechanism. Every time you switch tasks, your brain pays what researchers call a switching cost. Your prefrontal cortex has to disengage from one mental model and load an entirely new one. This isn't instant. It takes measurable time and mental energy. Do this constantly, dozens or hundreds of times a day, and your brain starts optimizing for switching instead of for depth. The neural pathways associated with sustained, effortful focus get used less. And in the brain, what doesn't get used weakens. This is sometimes called digital amnesia, the slow erosion of the brain's ability to hold deep focus, simply because it's rarely asked to anymore. And here's the part that should genuinely unsettle you. Deep focus isn't just useful for productivity. It's the cognitive state required for complex problem solving, for genuine creativity, for processing emotions, for forming long-term memories. Researcher Cal Newport calls this kind of focus deep work, and he argues it is becoming a rare and increasingly valuable cognitive skill, precisely because the environment most people live in actively destroys the conditions required to develop it. We didn't just lose some free time to our phones. We may be losing the capacity for an entire category of thinking. Here's the part of this video that nobody expects. This isn't really about phones, it's about what phones replaced. For most of human history, boredom was unavoidable. Waiting in line, riding a train, lying awake at night, these moments had nothing to fill them. And in that nothing, your brain did something important. It activated what neuroscientists call the default mode network, a set of brain regions that only become active when you're not focused on an external task. This network is responsible for self-reflection, for memory consolidation, for the kind of unstructured idea generation people call inspiration. Some of history's most important insights weren't found through focused effort. They were found in the shower, on a walk, in moments of total boredom, when the default mode network finally had space to operate. Smartphones eliminated that space almost entirely. Every gap, every line, every idle moment is now filled. And the default mode network, the part of your brain responsible for some of your deepest thinking, rarely gets the chance to switch on anymore. We didn't just get distracted. We engineered boredom out of existence, and we may have engineered a piece of human creativity out along with it. But here's what this actually means. If your attention was taken through specific, identifiable mechanisms, that also means it can be taken back through specific, identifiable methods. This isn't a willpower problem you've personally failed at. It's an engineering problem you can engineer your way out of. Researchers studying attention recovery have found that the most effective interventions aren't complicated. Removing notification badges, turning phones to grayscale to reduce dopamine triggering color, designating specific blocks of phone-free time, especially first thing in the morning when the brain is most vulnerable to the pull to refresh loop. And critically, protecting boredom on purpose, letting a line, a wait, a quiet moment stay empty instead of immediately filling it. Your brain spent its entire evolutionary history without a device competing for every spare second of its attention. That capacity for deep, sustained focus is still in there. It hasn't been destroyed. It's been outcompeted. The question isn't whether you can get your attention back. Neuroscience says you can. The real question is, are you willing to compete for it? Like and subscribe for more. And as always, go beyond theory.